At the beginning of the 20th century, Pérouges almost disappeared beneath its stones. Its impending fate was circumvented. What a tale! Although the origins of Pérouges are not certain, some historians believe that it was built by the Ambar tribe who had come back from Perugia in Italy before Gaul was overcome by the Romans. However, the oldest scripts, dating from the 11th and 12th centuries, can be attributed to the sires of Anthon. Pérouges is located in the department of Ain, on the crest of the Côtière des Dombes, 30 kilometers east of Lyon. It proudly dominates the plains of Ain, protected by the Bugey Mountains and juxtaposing Meximieux, which was its sworn enemy for many years. Pérouges belonged to the Duke of Savoy in the 16th century. However, thanks to the Treaty of Lyon, signed in 1601, it became definitively French, thus ending the war between Henri IV and Charles-Emmanuel I. Throughout its long history, Pérouges suffered numerous tragedies: epidemic outbreaks, invasions, sieges, and landslides. Nevertheless, during the long medieval period, Pérouges experienced a golden age with flourishing commercial activity, centered around the trades of weaving of flax and hemp, as well as silk, in the shadows of the Lyon metropolis. Many other professions and trades contributed to its dynamism and social equilibrium: traders, coppersmiths, catering professionals, restaurants, farmers, and painters. Great names remain associated with this city, such as Claude Favre de Vaugelas, Baron de Pérouges, born in the 16th century, nicknamed the Clerk of Terminology because he was considered to be the father of French grammar. The city had been surrounded by ramparts to defend itself, as attackers were numerous: royal soldiers, soldiers of the Archbishop of Lyon and of the Duke of Comminges, as well as soldiers from Dauphine, to cite but a few. But it never surrendered. The church itself was raised against these ramparts, and on the sides of its western wall, sacred hymns could be heard as they floated through the arrow slits. The French Revolution began to impact the integrity of the city, its partisans wishing to destroy any religious or war-related symbols. Through faulty maintenance, the northern rampart crumbles and the round tower, symbol of Perugian resistance, is destroyed. The misfortune suffered by the city continues when in 1839 a fire in the city breaks out, destroying the wooden hall of the central square, where formerly the Saturday market was held. We can still see the traces today in the crooked alignment of the paving stones. From the middle of the 19th century, advanced technologies accelerate the decline of the city. The arrival of new transportation routes in the plains, like the railroad, meant that businesses migrated to their proximity. The weavers, adopting the jacquard system, are rapidly exceeded by this technology. In 1903, only 3 weavers and a handful of inhabitants remain in the city. Some abandon their homes, which are then plundered or prone to destruction by landslides. The vegetation seems to invade the walls and the stones little by little, as the inhabitants desert the city. One of its inhabitants refused to give in to the idea that Pérouges may one day disappear, François Thibault. He's married to Marie Manine, a young lady of Pérouges, with which he has 4 children, Anthelme, the eldest, and his 3 sisters, Jeanne, Marguerite, and Lucienne. François is a carpenter, and his work as a specially trained apprentice can be admired in the Museum of Pérouges. He is also a poet and historian of the city, knowing the ins and outs of many of the homes, having participated in their construction and/or renovation. Francisque writes a thoroughly factual report of his ailing city, and in 1903 publishes a book on the history of Pérouges. He is very active in maintaining the life in the city by means of numerous social actions, educating and encouraging his children to do the same, and giving them access to culture in general. The eldest son, Anthelme, becomes a chemistry teacher at the High School of Martinière in Lyon, as well as scientific correspondent for the Lyon Republican. Francisque Thibault dies on March 30th, 1907, tired by his ceaseless combat to save Pérouges, but knowing that his work will be pursued. Anthelme Thibault is acquainted with the mayor of Lyon, Édouard Herriot, doctor of literature and a professor, like him, at Martinière High School. Taking him along to Pérouges, he manages, with the help of Jean Janin, then mayor of the town, to convince this politician and educated man of the need to save this medieval city near Lyon, which is on the point of collapsing. In spring 1909, an event precipitates things. Falling rocks wound passers-by. A municipal law passed on October 10th, 1909, thus requires inhabitants to either repair or demolish their homes. Most inhabitants, having little or no means, desert the city. Delaying action is thus no longer an option. Anthelme Thibault wrote in an issue of the Lyon Republican, "It will not be said of Pérouges, whose old ramparts, still upright, resisted several sieges in the Middle Ages. Pérouges, of which the inhabitants were formerly threatened of exclusion from religious ceremonies for having, through their independence, resisted the sieging troops of the Archbishop of Lyon, that Pérouges fell, forever dead, in the light of a new municipal law, because no final and supreme appeal had been made, by one who loved it so dearly, to save it." Most of the regional press highlights the impending gloom, and passionate readers flock to the town on Sundays to visit the agonizing city, accompanied by intellectuals, artists, teachers with groups of pupils, and future photographers training as professionals in the region and supported by the Lumiere brothers, who were absolute partisans of the project. Francisque Thibault's book is then re-edited. On April the 15th, 1911, in one of the rooms of the Commercial Palace of Lyon, the Defense and Conservation Committee of Ancient Pérouges is created.
Mesdames, Messieurs, la séance est ouverte.
There are 120 participants, of which the Senator Beauvisage, Pierre Robin, the Vice President of the General Council of the Rhône, and Henri Gorjou, elected official of Lyon. The meeting is chaired by Charles Lutot, prefect of the Rhône at the time. The idea for the safeguard of the city is simple. For those devoted to and passionate about Pérouges and who have financial means, the idea is to buy a house and restore it according to the artisanal practices in use. Thus, numerous architects, doctors, lawyers, and artists become owners, including Édouard Herriot, for whom Pérouges became his unique home, as this plate testifies. This type of renovation is unique in France. During and following this general meeting, important decisions were taken: the animation of the city, the organization of festivals, the creation of a museum and an inn, the creation of a civil society for the acquisition of property, such as the House of Princes of Savoy, and finally, the control of renovations. The old Ruby Café becomes the hostelry, suitable for accommodating and providing meals to visitors. Antelme Thibault's wife, Marie-Louise, manages the establishment, which is still in the family today. It is located on the market square, dominated by the tree of freedom planted by Gaspard Favier, representative of Pérouges, at the Festival of the Federation in Paris on July the 14th, 1790. The 14th of July is now a well-known French national holiday. Two architects working for the Bureau of Cultural Heritage undertake the task of indexing the heritage of the city. In 1922, Mr. Gélis, chief architect of the Bureau, makes a drawing of all the houses, still visible in the museum today. From 1935, together with Émile Bollert, prefect of the Rhône at the time, they start the renovation of the House of Princes de Savoie, which was in a sorry state. The great works last several decades, and in 1952, the electrical network is placed underground. The Church of Sainte Marie Magdalene is restored and is reopened to the public in 1961. The committee had and still has the permanent concern to stage festivals and cultural events to develop and consolidate the reputation of Pérouges in the process of rectification. Traditional public celebrations and folk festivals, painting exhibitions, and annual meetings of Lyon's journalists. In May 1924, the city welcomes the first Congress of Heraldry Specialists of France. The School of Fine Arts contribute to the committee. Émile Salomon publishes a collection of the armorial bearings of the noble families. The medieval city of Pérouges is gradually integrated into all the touristic routes in the area. The firm Peugeot, for example, used old stones in its adverts, as they had become really popular. Many film scenes are shot within its medieval walls. Many craftsmen and artists take possession of the buildings once again. The House of Cazin exhibits regional artists all year round, as does the House of Prince, exposing contemporary art. Pérouges is now ranked among the most beautiful villages in France. One would never have guessed that, considering its appearance at the beginning of the 20th century. Perugia Perugiarum, urbs imprenabilis. Pérouges of Pérougians, impregnable city, was thus saved from destruction, and the Committee of Defence and Conservation of Ancient Pérouges, along with the town hall and private owners, continue tirelessly their work of maintenance. The committee today is made up of hundreds of members, including American, English, and Swiss citizens. Among all these idlers strolling along the cobbled streets of the city on a beautiful sunny day, who would guess that its beauty and grace are thanks to a handful of determined men, passionate for its heritage, conscious of its history, and for which the past is the cornerstone of the future. Pérouges, your patron Saint George, slaughtering the dragon, must be proud of its flocks. May your streamer of fire and gold float proudly above the plains of Ain and Bougie as a sign of eternal recognition.